I'm Carrie Stinson, and my journey through life has been quite an adventure. For over 20 years, I played Barney the Dinosaur on tour and 7 seasons of the hugely popular TV show Barney and Friends. Now my journey is to bring together friends and guests from all over the entertainment world for inspiring and at times amusing behind-the-scenes conversation. I'm Carrie Stinson, and this is Purple Roads. Welcome to Purple Roads. My name is Carrie Stinson, and as always, I'm thrilled you're here. Goodness gracious, are we going to have so much fun? I don't even know where to start to describe this wonderful person we have on. He mentioned fabulous, and there's no question about that. Broadway actor, and there's so much here, and he's a big Barney fan, which excites me so much. I'm so excited to have Todrick Hall. Todrick, how are you?
I'm so good. Nice to meet you via Zoom.
Yes. You know, we have this wonderful connection of Barry Pearl, who is just one of my absolute favorite people. And he connected us, and then getting to talk to you, I was like, oh my gosh, I would love to have you on Purple Roads.
Well, I'm so grateful to be here. He told me about your podcast before I got to talk to you and told me that he'd done it and could not have given you a greater Yelp review if he tried. This was so interesting because I posted some things when I was watching Barney in the middle of the night on my Instagram story, and so many people responded to it because I think it's just unlocks one of those core memories for everyone. So when you asked me to be a part of this, it was a 100% yes. And we just spoke yesterday, and now we're already doing the podcast because I just love what you're doing so much, and I love that you're keeping this legacy alive.
Well, thank you so much, and it's also very exciting that we're both Texans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was born in the panhandle of Texas. I don't know if you're familiar with the Lubbock, Amarillo, Plainview area, but I grew up in Plainview. But now I claim Dallas-Fort Worth as, my home.
Well, I'm in Fort Worth, but I moved here from Washington, D.C. to Dallas when I was 10 years old and lived in Texas most of my life. And I have been to Amarillo in that area. And obviously I claim DFW as my home too.
Yeah, when you drive by the Bass Hall next, give a little honk for me because that's my old stomping ground.
Oh my gosh, I will do that. You have such an interesting story. Where do we start when it comes to how you got into this business? It sounds like from briefly talking to you yesterday, you just had a desire as an early age.
Well, to be honest, I think that Barney was really instrumental in helping me become the creative person that I was. When I was in elementary school, I was just obsessed with Barney, and I would watch it all the time. And because there were no dance studios, I learned how to dance from watching the Disney Christmas parade every year and watching episodes of Barney. That's how I would teach myself choreography. And when I was maybe between 6 and 8, I got tested for the Gifted and Talented program by my teacher, Pat Carthel, who I really thank in every single opportunity that I get because she is such an instrumental part in like helping nurture my creativity from a very young age. And she found me and she gave me 6 boxes and said, there's little squiggly lines in here. I just want you to turn them into something. And I turned those 6 boxes into Dorothy, the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, the Lion, the Good Witch, and the Bad Witch. And the rest is history. They put me in the Gifted and Talented program. And she started taking me to go see musical theater and going to see shows. And they would go every year as a holiday field trip. The Gifted and Talented kids would go see the Nutcracker Ballet in Amarillo. And I was always so inspired by the show and by the costumes and the choreography and the fog machines and the sets and the orchestra, and everything about it was just like sensory overload for me. And that's how I got into starting to perform and sing and dance. I started taking dance at a very young age and got to be in the Nutcracker a few years after I saw it for the first time. And I just knew at a very, very young age that this is what I was put on this earth to do, what I was meant to do, and that I would be singing and dancing and performing for a very long time.
I love that, because when you realize you have that talent, there's really nothing that's going to stop you. If you love it that much, you're just going to go find a way, which you've obviously done.
Yeah, it was a talent, but also just a passion for it. Like on top of me singing and dancing, I just loved watching people sing and dance. Nothing made me happier. And I grew up as an only child. My brother and I are 14 years apart. So he wasn't born until I was midway through high school. And it was something that just inspired me every single day. I would watch TV shows and movies and musicals and ballets, anything with music and dancing and creativity. I just absorbed it every single second of every single day.
Well, it's very special to my heart that Barney was something that you connected with. For me as a kid, it was Mr. Rogers and it was Sesame Street. And I had the opportunity to work with Mr. McFeely, and I got to work with Carol Spinney. And it was the greatest thing. I've told this story many times on here, but it was just it meant so much to me. And so to hear you inspired by what we did just means a lot.
I just recently watched a documentary about Carol Spinney, and I just think his story is so inspiring, and like that he had that Willy Wonka, like childlike energy. I'm never going to grow up. The Peter Pan syndrome, as some call it. Right. And it's so awesome to see. Like you just saying that gave me chills. That's so incredible that you got to work with him and be in his presence. It's incredible.
And he was such a caring. We did TV interviews that Barney and Big Bird did, and he was just, so giving as a performer. And of course, when you meet someone like that, you look up to him so much, and he's exactly what you think he is. It was just incredible.
I love that. I love that so much.
So did you go dance first? Did you go after that first, or was it singing? Obviously you were on American Idol and then your YouTube channel, and you just kind of took off, and then, a Broadway actor in so many wonderful shows.
I think it definitely started with dancing first. I never had formal singing training though. So I guess I was kind of simultaneously doing them together, but even though I didn't realize it, because I sang in church every Sunday. So I was fine tuning that craft while also taking dance class. And then my dad, who's a basketball coach, but randomly knew how to tumble and do like backflips, my stepdad, but who I basically is my dad. He's the person that raised me. He taught me how to tumble and how to do backflips at a very young age. So I think I was kind of like accidentally learning all these different skill sets that were going to help me get to Broadway. And I made my Broadway debut at 20 years old in The Color Purple. And it was such a random way that I got onto Broadway, but it was so fast. I was on a cruise ship 2 weeks prior to that, quit the cruise ship, went to New York on a whim because I knew they were having auditions for The Color Purple. And I always wanted to be on Broadway, but really I was a fanatical, obsessed fan of American Idol, and Fantasia Barrino was playing the lead role of Celie at the time. So I went there, auditioned for the show and booked it, and 2 weeks later had made my Broadway debut, and my whole family got to fly to New York for the first time and see me on stage. And it was just such an incredible moment, but it was because of all those little things that I've been doing, the singing, the dancing, the acting, the tumbling, all together were the reason why I guess I had all of the ingredients necessary to make my Broadway debut. And I was a baby. I was so young. But I was embraced by everyone there. And it was just, to me, one of those, those moments that you look back at life and you're like, everything about that experience was positive. I wish I could go back and relive it, because it was just such a tremendous show. And it was really important for me as an African-American artist to get to be in a cast full of African-American people who taught me some very, very important and very difficult life lessons at a very young age.
And I saw that show.
Oh, you did?
I did. Wow. Because I thought Fantasia was just, I walked out of that show just lifted. I mean, she was incredible. It was an amazing show.
Well, I started 2 weeks after she started. So unless you saw the first 16 performances she did, there's a chance that you and I have already been in the same room, at least one. So
that's amazing. I used to do a lot of Barney events up in New York. And so I'm such a huge Broadway fan. I would always go see a show. And that was one of them I saw. So I probably did see you.
You probably did. I hardly ever missed a show.
I can only imagine now that I've seen that, the experience as a 20-year-old to be in a cast like that.
Oh, it was insane. It was life-changing. It was so incredible. And it taught me a level of work ethic that has like followed me throughout my entire life. When I took dance as a kid, I mostly focused on ballet, which we all know is like a very, very strict and disciplined form of dance. And I think honestly, it was the fact that I had that ballet training and had that work ethic instilled in me by my dance instructor, Yvonne, at such a young age that now I think that is probably the reason why I've gotten to this level of success in my career, because theoretically I shouldn't be in this position because I don't have a manager. I haven't had people helping me, but I had an insane work ethic and an insane drive. And I woke up every day and like fought for, my opportunity to let my voice be heard in this industry. And it's definitely paid off.
No question. I love hearing that because hard work really will do that. I think that's amazing. I was thinking as we were talking about going back to The Color Purple, you said you grew up in the church and that show felt like church.
Yeah.
Was there a connection there for you?
Absolutely. And, I've always struggled with my relationship with religion because, I am an open, proud member of the LGBTQ plus community. And that's always been like a struggle for me. But I think that to have spirituality and to have a relationship, with religion is as everyone's own particular journey. And I think that story had so much to do with love and hope and God and belief and religion and prayer. And it really helped me re-enter that chapter of my life because I had kind of rebelled against the church. It helped me re-enter that part of my life and have an appreciation for it and be able to like really feel every lyric that I was singing and not feel like it was uncomfortable for me to sing it, because there was just so much love in the room and we all prayed together and we all like spent Thanksgivings together and Christmases together and, did everything together as a family, which is not something that always happens in casts and companies of touring shows or Broadway shows, whatever. So it was really, really awesome to be able to be around a bunch of people who shared experiences like me and share a religious experience with those people.
I love that. I absolutely love that because I'm with you 100%. That it is a personal journey. And I'm so glad that you found that and were able to do that. That's amazing. Because I didn't feel like, going to that. And obviously I'd seen the movie, so I had some context going in and then seeing the show. But I don't know how you couldn't walk out of it just lifted and inspired. It was just such an amazing show.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And those voices were so anointed and so gifted that when you hear them sing, you're like, there's just nothing else like this. It was a life-changing show. And I'm so excited. I don't know if you know this, but Fantasia is playing Celie in the new musical version of The Color Purple. And I think it's the breakout star opportunity that she's always needed because she was so incredible in that show. And I don't think it was never archived or filmed in a way that people can experience it. So I'm happy that you saw that because a lot of people don't really realize how much of a powerhouse she was in that show if they didn't go see it themselves. And I'm excited for the world to get to see that.
That's awesome because I didn't know that. And it is a shame because the talent was just amazing. Was it intimidating for you? To be at that young age and because it's that cast, but it's also Broadway.
Mm-hmm. I think it was intimidating in a great way. I didn't feel overwhelmed. I didn't feel overwhelmed with intimidation. I felt like this is a time where you have to rise up and show everything that you have worked so hard for. And it helped me grow up really fast. And it helped me learn a lot of lessons because I was in rooms with people who were in their mid 30s, 15, 18 years older than me. And I had to really learn how to, and they were so sweet and patient with me because now I think back to things that I would walk into the dressing room and say, and they could have laughed at me and just written me off, but they were always so supportive and so supportive of my gift and my talent. And they recognized it at a very young age. So I didn't feel intimidated. And I think if I had opened and made my Broadway debut with a more diverse cast, it would have been scary, but it felt like they were all my aunts, my uncles, my cousins, my brothers and sisters. Like it felt like so much love and like they all wanted me to do well, And I haven't felt like that in most shows that I was in. So that to me was like a dream way to make a Broadway debut that felt like family, felt like church, felt very familiar to me.
So where did you go from there?
Well, from there, I was inspired by working with Fantasia to audition for American Idol, and I auditioned for American Idol. I made it to the top like 13. I got eliminated the night before. They basically chose the top 12. I was devastated, but it was a bittersweet moment. I really felt like a lot of people had made it that far in their career, and that was the moment that defined them. That was their claim to fame. I was once on American Idol, and that was the end for them. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But once I'd gotten a taste of what it was like to live that life, I felt like I had so much to prove, because Simon and some of the judges said things to me about being too theatrical and stuff like that. And I was like, I don't think that those are negative things. I think Michael Jackson and Janet Jackson and Prince were theatrical. I think Katy Perry is theatrical. I think Beyonce is theatrical. All of the people that I love do things that are over the top. And I was like, I want to find a way to marry those two worlds and never have to abandon my theatrical side, but also show that there is a place for me in a world where I can be some sort of pop star. And I've never been on the radio really, or like had like commercial success in the way that, the greats have, but I've gotten my songs as an independent artist placed on huge major TV shows and things like that. And I think it was all because there was a fire like lit inside of me after American Idol that was like, you have to fight to stay in this industry. You see what it is now. You have to figure out a way to fight, make yourself relevant, but also never abandon their core values and your moral and ethic compass that your parents in Texas have instilled in you. And I think I've done a really good job of that. There have been definitely moments where I've like lost my mind because this industry is a lot. But for the most part, I'm proud of the way that I've nurtured and kept my relationships. I'm still really close friends with people that I met in 2010, 2011 when I moved here. They're still here for me and I'm still there for them. And I think that's really a testament of what type of person someone is if they have friends that are lifelong friends that stick beside them for decades,
Right.
And that's something I'm really proud of. But American Idol was a huge learning lesson and it was heartbreaking for me in a lot of ways, but I'm grateful for that experience now looking back at it.
Well, and what you did for it, like what you did in that moment, I think is amazing.
Yeah, it was awesome. And I wish that I
Because
could have
we're all told no, right? We're all
Yeah.
told no at some point. I've had my moments and you just kind of look and go, or sometimes you don't even get the phone call. Like it's just, you're like, well, wait a minute.
I took that no and I just said, okay, but what can you do with this? And do you let this define you or do you work hard? And I don't feel like I was really true to who I was on the show. And I think that was the part that was the hardest pill to swallow, is that I think I would have accepted it better had I felt like I really portrayed myself in the best light, but I didn't. And I was in love with someone at the time and I didn't let them be on camera because I was so embarrassed and worried about what the world would say and the judgment. And that still to this day breaks my heart because I loved that person so much. So I am very, very excited about the fact that I am now unapologetically myself. In some moments, I think I've overcorrected and gone a little too far. And my mom is like, Todrick, I love you. We don't need to keep making videos like this. But I think that this journey has just been really, really important. And I think every single person has to go on a journey and figure out who they are, who they want to be and what they stand for and what they want their legacy to be, whether it's on a huge, massive level or on the smallest of levels in someone's small hometown. You gotta know where you want to be and what you want to be remembered for. And don't ever let the world or social media or the internet or in any sort of media like alter who you know yourself to be and what you know in your heart to be true. And that's the hardest part about being in this industry to me.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up because I grew up without that, right? When I was doing Barney back in the early days, we didn't have social media. We didn't have all of that followed around. So we did have cameras following us, but it was just for magazines and newspaper. I mean, that was really it. All the world didn't know everything that you did immediately because I was 23 when I started. And so I didn't know anything about this industry. And so you learn, and sometimes it is harsh, but I think it's so much harsher these days. So I think you've done an amazing job to work through a tough industry.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I just want to be a role model for people who are confused about where their place is on this planet, because I definitely was very confused as to like why I existed and why would God or the universe or whatever give me this talent if it wasn't meant to be seen and if it wasn't really for people. It took me a really long time and I'm still trying to figure that out. But every time I go on tour and I get to meet my fans, it becomes abundantly and like evidently clear why I am who I am, why I have this specific point of view, and why it's important for me to keep creating. And that's kind of like the driving force that keeps me pushing, because this industry is hard. It will lift you up one day and then drop you down to the ground, eat you up, spit you out, and stomp on you, and then roll back and stomp on you again if you let it. And
Right.
I think it takes really, really strong people to persevere, to reinvent themselves, to peel themselves off the ground, teach themselves how to walk again, sing again, dance again, and have the courage to put themselves out there. Because even just being vulnerable enough to put yourself out there is such a scary thing for so many people. And I applaud anybody who has the courage to do it, and anybody who comes back from a social media takedown or anything like that is somebody that I really respect, because it's hard to do.
So how did you decide? Because you do so many different things.
Mm-hmm.
You're on so many different shows, so many different aspects of things that you're done in this industry. Is it that you just have a passion to do something at one point, then you want to do another project? Because you're doing Broadway and then you're doing a TV show and then you're a judge on RuPaul's. I mean, you're doing all of these different things, and then you're touring, and I can go on and on and on. And we've talked about, you have ideas of doing kids shows. So you have so much that you want to do. Where does this come from? Where does this creative energy that you have? Or is it driving you, or are you driving it?
I don't know which one of us is driving each other. I don't know. I just put my seatbelt on and go for it at this point. But I think that I'm just, a person who, I never thought I would be in this position ever, Carrie. Like, I never thought that I was going to be here. So I don't know that I have very much of a strategy. And I think that's kind of what I'm trying to figure out now. What is my strategy? Where do I want to be? And how do I want to get there? And I think that that's probably the most difficult part of this, is like figuring out what things to say yes to, what things to say no to. This whole industry in your life, I think, is a big game of chess, and every single move that you make affects the next move and affects whether or not you'll ultimately win in the end. And I kind of just say yes to things that excite me in the moment. If an opportunity comes, I say, great, I'm down for that. I'll try it, And that's what I've tried to continue to do throughout life, is take opportunities as they come. If Broadway calls, I answer the phone. If it's television or film, if it's a choreography job, if it's a writing gig, I do that. And I really am grateful that I'm kind of getting to a stopping point right now this year to figure out, what is Todrick going to be in 2023 and 2024, 2025? What's my long-term goal, rather than just sitting around waiting for opportunities to knock on my door. I've usually had the most success when I go create opportunities for myself. And so that's what I really want to do this next year, is create opportunities for myself, but try to create long-term opportunities, things that will have a lot of payoff in the end. I would love to write a Broadway show. I would love to create a show for a Netflix or a Paramount Plus, or like a scripted show. I'm not super thrilled about doing too much more reality, just because I don't really get to show my talent in those. I just am kind of like a personality. So I don't really know. I don't know how to answer that question. I don't know what's driving me to do things. I just know I want to be in this industry. I want to keep creating art. And when I'm in a place where I get to share my creativity and write songs and bring my ideas and concepts to life for people to enjoy, that's when I'm at my happiest place. And I think that that is like my superpower, and what I should try to make sure that everything I do, whether it's a kid show, whether it's Broadway, television, film, that it is sparking that same joy and inspiring people, because ultimately that's one of the words that people say about my work. When they see it, they say, I was inspired by this. It was inspirational. And I just want that to continuously be the review that people get from the work that I've done, because I think inspiration is so important.
Well, it is, and it's a power you have, right? That you can help people, right?
Yeah.
You know, we had the ability. I didn't, you know, when I started at 23, I was looking for a job. I've been very
Yeah.
honest about that. I was looking for a job, and I had no idea what this purple dinosaur was when I first started. And I was doing it, and I was pretty good at it. And then they asked me to go to a hospital, and I realized very quickly the power that these kids looked up to it. And that was the most important. I had to grow up very quickly. I had to be responsible. And
Yeah.
and then of course it took over, and it, you know, I feel like I learned more from the kids, and hearing your stories, and the people that call and say what Barney meant to them. It's amazing. Are you going through that as well now? Do you have fans that tell you how you inspire them?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. My fans call me and say that they feel comfortable dressing how they want, or wearing heels, or dancing in a certain way, or singing certain things, or going after a role in their high school or middle school or regional musical theater program because they saw me do it, and they wanted to do it as well. So my fans definitely tell me that. And on my darkest of days, when I've considered for 1 millisecond quitting doing what I'm doing, those are the testimonies and the reviews and the DMs and messages and texts and things that have kept me pushing and kept me realizing that this is what I'm supposed to do and I can't quit.
I love that. Let's talk about the YouTube channel.
Okay.
When you started that, I mean, did you have any clue,
No,
that you were going to
no.
get so many people watching and subscribing and loving what you're doing?
No, I had no clue. Even to this day, it's very strange to me to think about. Like, I go online and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have this many views on my YouTube page. And I don't even know I'm looking at it right now as we speak because I haven't been on it in a minute. But it's just very insane to me that that we have 896 million views on YouTube, almost 900 million. Another 100 million, it'll be 1 billion views. That's insane to me. That is my reality right now. And I would like to continue to be able to share my stories with people and inspire them. But no, I had no idea that it was going to do this.
Well, so what happens when you start putting content out there, and then all of a sudden it just starts going and going and go? You hit, you know, 1 million, and then 2 million, and then what are you thinking?
At the time we were working, my team and I were working so hard that we weren't really thinking. Like, every video we wanted to hit 1 million views, right? And it started to become like the norm that within the week they would always hit 1 million views. And once it did that, we wouldn't even look at the video anymore to see if it performed well. We would just be like, okay, great, we hit that mark, next video. But sometimes, like this year, I've gone, and during the pandemic, I went back and looked at some of these videos and like, oh my gosh, this is 26 million views. Or, you know, like, or kids will come up to me and say, I used to watch you in middle school, and I this and this and this and this. And that used to kind of offend me because it just started happening recently that people are like, I grew up watching you. And I'm like, am I that old right now that my YouTube channel is
Todrick,
like,
you're going to have to embrace that. I've had to go through it. It's tough.
it is such a strange thing to start hearing for the first time. Like, I used to watch you when I was in elementary school. I'm like, what? But I love the fact that it's inspired so many people, and that I was one of the first people doing it, making really full out content online. Like, there weren't a lot of people making musicals basically on the internet, and we were, and it was really cool to like watch people fall in love with them, to see people perform to them, and, you know, like dance to them at their recitals or their, you know, talent shows. It's just been insane. But you would never think that. And because it was the dawn of a new age, it was the Wild West of putting out content on social media. You're like, you see the numbers going up, but at a certain point you start to forget that those are actual people. You're just like seeing numbers, and it could be 5 people watching it over and over and over again on repeat for all you know. But I think going on my first tour was the first time that I was like, oh my goodness, like, this is insane that these people are coming. They're dressed up like me. They have costumes. They know all the words to these songs that I wrote in the shower or like on the toilet or something. Like, it's just insane. Like, these people have committed these very personal experiences to memory. And it was such a shift in the way I looked at the world, you know?
Now, and that's how you got connected with Barry.
Yeah. Well, I got connected with Barry because we did Hairspray together at Musical Theater West.
Okay.
And he was just so incredible as Wilbur Turnblad. And I just loved watching him rehearse because he was just such a seasoned professional. And I felt like I could learn a lot from watching him and watching how full out he rehearsed, because I was kind of one of those people that sort of reserved and didn't really want to show all my cards until we got on the stage. But that never really works for anyone, because the first time you should perform in front of an audience shouldn't be the first time you've ever done it full out, you know?
Right.
So I learned that from Barry, and I asked him, I was so nervous to ask him if he would come play with me and be in some of my videos. And he was like, yes. And he came and he wrote some of the lines and made everything his own. And I mean, he was just such an incredible person to work with. And I learned so many other things about the industry from him. And what I really appreciate about Barry, I don't know if this is too personal or if you edit these, but Barry and I have had some sort of difficult conversations about rights and who owns things and whatever. And like, there have been moments where we've not agreed, but Barry has always been a very transparent person who is like mature enough to pick up the phone and say, with love, I didn't feel respected in this moment. And I can say, oh my goodness, I didn't mean for it to be that way. And that's why, to me, we got even closer, because he was a mentor to me and he was patient with me at a time where sometimes people won't be and they don't offer that grace. And I just think he's such an incredible human being and somebody that I am so grateful to have in my life.
No, I'm glad you brought that up, because I toured with him, and I had done Barney live in New York. It was just a 12 shows at Radio City Music Hall, and then my first tour was with Barry. And of course, this was all new to me.
Yeah.
And he was a seasoned professional, and so I learned a lot from Barry Pearl, and I just love him. That we've stayed so close. I just love him to death. And, he said, oh my gosh, Todrick's the best. And he just thinks the world of you.
Oh, I love that so much. And I'm so grateful that he knows how insane I am, because some of the questions I was asking you yesterday are probably the most random questions you've ever had. But I think if you don't ask things, then if you don't try, you don't get it. And I'm
Right.
so happy that I've met you now, because now I'm getting to be on this really cool podcast about something I care about. But also, like, who knows, that's the way this industry works. One day we could bump into each other and the perfect fit could happen and we could end up doing something really cool together. So yeah.
No, that's exactly it. So I got so many questions I want to ask you, and I got so little time.
Okay.
So you go back to Broadway.
I'm going back to Broadway.
Yeah, because you did Kinky Boots. You were in Chicago, one of my favorite shows. What is that like, going and doing these other shows after the experience you had with Color Purple?
They're incredible. It's never going to be like your first Broadway debut, but I've enjoyed it immensely. I've loved it. I'm so happy that my career has been so all over the place. I've gotten to know what it's like to be in the ensemble of a few musicals, and then to play Lola was so true to my real life, and I got to like really tap into some kind of like dark and sad moments in my life, but like be able to tap into that. And it was almost like therapy for me to relive moments that happened in my life. It was like that show was written for me. And fun fact, debuted on my birthday, April 4th. So I was like, okay, there's something here, the reason why I'm supposed to be in the show. But then Chicago was a really cool opportunity to be Billy Flynn, because it was so different from what I had done as Lola, as a drag queen in that show. And it let me, like, not be put into a box. Like, I think that Broadway producers and directors, casting directors, can see he can do more than just be a drag queen. And then, because I had never gotten to play a comedic role, and I feel like I'm such a goofball, I was so excited to be in Waitress, because Ogie was my favorite character. And Chris Fitzgerald, who is incredible, like, to be able to do a role that he had done was just, that's kind of an iconic thing to do. And I love Sarah Bareilles. I love her music. Getting to be a part of that show was tremendous. And I got to do it with Miranda Sings, my friend Colleen Ballinger, who plays Miranda Sings on YouTube. And we grew up kind of doing YouTube together. So it was really, really awesome to see, like, us be able to, like, do what we both love. We were both like musical theater nerds. That was one of the reasons we bonded, and to get to play those roles on Broadway together, and to be able to watch her experience her Broadway debut, and to help her get cast in the show, and like to be able to like call people and say, you should really let her do this, was just so much fun. It was so incredible.
did you, goodness gracious, going from all three of those, do you kind of seek out those different roles, like going for Chicago to do something different, to show all the talents that you have?
I do like to follow each zig with a zag. I learned that term from my friend Taylor Swift. She says that to me, and I love watching her zigzag and change her narrative and change up her aesthetic or whatever, but still give you just like lyrics that will make your heart melt. I love that about her. So I have tried to apply that to my own life in so many ways. And so I'm like, if I've done a drag queen in this show, I don't need to be in La Cage aux Folles the next show. I can go do something that is a challenge for me. And Billy Flynn was a huge challenge for me because I'm always nervous to play roles that are stereotypically like very, very masculine, because that's just not my vibe. And I think there's so many people who can do that, but I have enjoyed finding the way to make each role like apply to me and how I can be a sly lawyer that has like a rapid tongue that can, razzle and dazzle any audience and get his client completely like, can completely like free his client from murder,
Right.
I think that's such an awesome opportunity to have. And when I got the call, I was scared, as I always am, but I was like, this will be a really good challenge. I really love to do anything, Carrie, that challenges me. So if it's a challenge, sign me up.
Well, isn't it great if you're uncomfortable, right? Isn't that where it really comes from? If you not to say that you would, but if it's in your wheelhouse, there's just something about the fact you're doing something, you can do it, but maybe you're proving it to yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. And I did feel like I was proving something to myself. And I'm really, really happy with what I was able to do so far, because I think that there are moments and I was like, wow, I didn't think I was going to be able to do this. And I did it, and was I the best person to ever do it? Probably not, but I did it in my own way. I didn't copy someone. I was an artist. I made it my own. And that to me is what's important. So I've really, really enjoyed being able to do that. And I can't wait to continue to be able to do it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Do you look at the others that have played that role, or do you just go look at the material and just do your thing? Or do you go back and go, well,
on Broadway? When you're a replacement on Broadway, you always have to go watch the show, and every night you watch it. So I think I would be lying if I said I didn't take influences. There are moments I'm like, oh, I really like the way he delivered that line or whatever. But I never do a carbon copy of someone else's performance. I always like to put a little Todrick in there, because usually when I'm in a show, part of the reason I'm there, and I'm aware, human, I know that part of the reason they're hiring me is to sell tickets to the show. And if that's the case, then I want to make sure that my fans are going to be fulfilled, and that they're going to see like, oh, this is Todrick's version of Billy Flynn. This is Todrick's version of Ogie and Waitress. This is Todrick's version of Lola. And so I try to do my best to respect the artistic integrity of what the show was meant to be, while also giving my fans what they paid for by buying a ticket to come and see me. Because oftentimes they've seen the show before. They're coming back again to see me in the show. And I always want to deliver something new and different for them.
So let's talk about that, because you've obviously got to balance it, right? You've still got to create things for your fans. You built this fan base up now, right? So are you always thinking about them too? I've got to do something new for the YouTube channel, or new music, a new tour.
100%. I'm always thinking about what I can do to feed the beast and make sure that I'm challenging myself, because I don't really like to do things that are uninspired. So have to be inspired to do something. And sometimes I'm just not, and I need to deliver something. And I've done 700 videos at this point. So sometimes I'm like, if I'm not inspired, then I just don't really know what to tell you. I'm not going to really deliver anything incredible. But right now I'm very inspired. So.
Oh my goodness. Can we talk a little bit about what's coming up next year? What all you got going on next year?
Well, there are some things that I can't really say, but I'm
I understand
musicals.
Sure.
That's what you need to know, Carrie, is that I have always been a musical theater fan, and I'm kind of focusing on musicals. Also, as I told you, I've always wanted to create a kids show, so maybe that's in the horizon. I also have musicals that I call Todrick Hall musicals. I have some, I guess, like fairy tales that have gotten a new modern twist or spin. I used to do these shows probably over a decade ago, and now I'm releasing the rights for people to perform these musicals all over the world, and I'm very, very excited about that. So that should be happening next year. But beyond that, I just am waiting for something to spark my interest. I want to have kids. I want to be in a relationship. I want to get married. So I kind of want to prioritize being a human next year, which is very new for me. But I'm excited about the opportunity to explore what my life might be like.
It is a really important part. It's a really important part to take care of your life, to take care of you. I traveled at one point for 5 years. I was on the road with Barney for 5 years, 9 months out of the year on the road. And it was just like I was gone. I was doing shows every night. It was an amazing experience. But there's a point where you go, all right, I got to do something. I could keep doing this, but I've got to do something else. So I love hearing that you're focusing on Todrick as well.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm really excited to see what next year holds for me and my team and my crew. And I'm very passionate about my artistry, and I'm excited for next year. Where I wasn't a few months ago, I was like, just get me out of 2022. But I'm excited for what 2023 has to offer.
That's awesome. Let's talk Drag Race for a moment with RuPaul. What is it like being a judge on there? And
it's so fun.
You have a chance to kind of mentor, right? And help.
Yeah, to me, I try to give suggestions based on the fact that I was on a reality show, because most of those judges have never been in that position before. And it's a scary position, and the stakes are very high for you, because you realize it's an opportunity for you to change your life, to change your family's life, to change the trajectory of your career. And so I'm always just so much more nervous than I should probably be, because I'm an extreme empath and I'm putting myself in their situation. But also, what I love about it the most is being able to sit in such close proximity to the legend that is RuPaul. He's been such a huge influence on me, and to be able to look over and to talk to him or her, depending on which one he is in that moment, and get such great life advice. The things that have really helped me out of my darkest times are oftentimes quotes that RuPaul has said to me, or like little messages that he sent to me that I've like screenshot and put as the back screensaver on my phone, because it's really been great wisdom. And sometimes you need that wisdom from somebody who's walked in your shoes, or in this case, heels.
Right. Well, I mean, it's absolutely what what he's been able to accomplish. And then with that reality show, what he was able to do. And when he was, when he started his career, obviously, at least I hope that we're more open these days. And he's flourished, and he's obviously inspired as well. He takes that role obviously very seriously.
Yes. And he is just one of my favorite human beings I've ever met in my entire life. I love him so much. And I have no bad words to say about him. I just think what he has done has been revolutionary for television. There are so many incredible LGBTQ plus artists that have always been behind the scenes doing the hair and makeup and costumes and choreography for the most legendary people in the world. And the fact that he's given them a platform to step into the spotlight and not have to be in the background waiting in the wings, but to show people what they can do is insane. He's being such a huge culture shifter. Like, people say words and lines from RuPaul's Drag Race in their everyday vernacular now, because that show has become such a huge part of pop culture. And I'm just happy that I've gotten to be a little cog in the machine, and to play even the smallest of parts in the show's success.
Talk about, because this is something I felt with Barney. We knew it was very important what we're doing, and obviously they do too, from the cast. Talk about that, understanding that show has a spotlight that can help people. And so every person on that show, every crew member, every aspect is so important to make sure that's the best show, that you can get that out there to the world.
I think you summed it up. I mean, the fact that they are able to get into the homes of these kids who sometimes might, without a show like RuPaul's Drag Race, feel unseen, unwanted, like they're a mistake. That show lets them know that they're absolutely not, that they're a star, that their voice and their story is necessary. And I think that's what Barney did. You know, like what I love about Barney so much, by the way, because we haven't really talked about Barney that much, but like,
Let's do it.
I loved that in a time where shows weren't, I mean, what is her name?
Cheryl Leach.
Cheryl Leach must have just been the most incredible human being that anyone's ever met, because I watched a lot of shows growing up and I didn't see the amount of diversity that she already all understood was necessary. And without seeing like little Black and brown kids on the show, I probably would not have connected to it in the way that I did. But there was always so much inclusion and so much diversity at a time where most people weren't doing that. And I can only imagine that that had to come from her and trickle down into the entire brand and what everybody felt was important and necessary. A lot of people, just unbeknownst to them, didn't realize how important it was to see kids of all ages and shapes and sizes and ethnicities. And that show did that for so many people. And Barney loved all of those kids equally the same. There was nobody that was the star because they were blonde haired and blue eyed. They were all kids that were coming there to learn and play with this dinosaur who was purple, and the Triceratops who was green. And I don't even know, like, if it was ever a conversation, but it was such a huge melting pot of different people and different types of dinosaurs. And they tackled sometimes very serious topics in a way that kids could understand. And I just thought that was incredible. And some other shows that have been very popular, we don't have to say the names, but they didn't really have as much diversity, and they didn't really start including so many people until much, much later when the world decided that it was necessary. And so I applaud Cheryl and the entire Barney and Friends team for making people like me feel included and like we belonged in Barney's universe. And I think it's really important. And I would be lying if I could say that I would be here without that influence. I learned so many like important life lessons from Barney and his friends. And one of those was that I deserved and I belonged to be in those rooms with all those people. And that's really important.
It just means the world to me hearing you say all that. Which will make you even feel better here. A lot of us, you know, the Baby Bop and BJ were both little people.
Mm-hmm.
Several of us had never been in costumes. My audition with Cheryl Leach, Dennis DeShazer, and Kathy Parker, creators and the executive producers, they were looking at my heart. They were looking at all of the actors, what kind of person they were. We can teach you to dance. We can do all these other things, but we need people that love and care. And I'd never seen anything like that.
Yeah.
Those kids that you're talking about were all hired. Yes, it was diverse, but they were also hired because they had talent. You know, yeah. They went out and looked at talent. It blows my mind that people don't do that and weren't doing that, right? There's so much talent across the board. And so being part of that show and all of that, and our choreographers were really good at highlighting kids' talents. Right? If someone wasn't as great of a dancer, or was a better singer, well, they still got hired and they highlighted their singing and they taught them and helped them through the dance, or vice versa. And so it was such an incredible show to be part of. And everyone just cared so much. We knew what we were doing was so important. And so getting the opportunity to hear you say these things just means the absolute world, not only to me, but all of the Barney people, because we love it so much.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much. And Barry told me that you got up and went to the hospitals and worked with the kids and stuff all the time, and that you never got tired of doing it. And I think a lot of people can do that for 5 seconds, but for that to be something that they're willing to do all the time is just insane. So it really speaks volumes of the type of person that you are and the type of heart that you have. And I really think that shines through. And they were so lucky to have you as part of the Barney and Friends camp, because not everybody would have been able to do that. Like they wouldn't have been able to do all of the shows you were doing on top of going to the hospital. And that going to hospitals, I've done it before, and it's heartbreaking and it's sad and it's difficult to do. And I don't know that I would be able to do that every day, because every time I go, it really puts life into perspective. But you have touched and changed so many people's lives by your time that you spent. The 20 years. How long were you
22.
with?
We did 22 years.
Wow, that's insane.
But don't you, it's interesting you say that, because I always felt like I didn't see sadness. I knew it was a very sad situation. I went into, into some of the burn units. I went into some rooms that would be really tough. And I always talk about this little girl that I went in a burn unit, and she just smiled when she saw Barney. And obviously I could see how hurt she was. And she sang the I Love You song to me. And yeah, emotionally, I was having a hard time, and I was having to think, you're Barney, you're not Carrie, right? You're the character. That's who she's come to see. But the fact that you can bring joy to someone like that. And of course, she's changed my life. I mean, I tell that story all the time, what these kids did. And I got to tell you this too, Cheryl and all of them insisted that Barney, and we were paying for this on our own. I know that Barney was very successful and financially, but they insisted when we went on tour that Barney would go to a hospital in every city, and that we would do special, VIP meet and greets with kids in wheelchairs and all of those things. And, it's just the most incredible thing I've ever seen, the reaction to something like that. And it was shy kids. And, that was part of the reason why Baby Bop was shorter, because some kids were comfortable going to a character at the same eye level. So it was incredible. And I just love hearing your story. And I love hearing that you're going to hospitals, because you're making the difference in people's lives.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, I love this so much, Carrie.
Oh, I love this too. This has been just such a pleasure having you on the show.
Oh, thank you. It's been a pleasure being here, to be honest. And I can't wait to hopefully meet you. We got to link up sometime when I'm in Texas. But thank you so much for doing this, for creating this podcast, and for giving people who are huge Barney fans and who have been touched by the Purple Dinosaur and the positive ways that we all have been, to share their stories and their experiences, because people probably listen to this because it sparks joy in them in the same way that Barney always did and always will, So I love that you're doing this. I really, really do. It's incredible.
Thank you so much. I just heard so many great stories when I was doing this. I thought, I want other people to hear them, because they're real. These are real stories. There are people that really care and want to put all this good out into the world. And I want people to know that. And hearing your story and all the good you're doing and how you found yourself and now what you're doing to help other people is just amazing.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. You're
Well,
so
kind. Well, we can't wait to see what you do in the new year, Todrick.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Same. And listen, if we ever want to do this again, let's make it happen again, because I'm always going to be a Barney fan for life.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Carrie. Have a good day.
Thank you. And thank you for watching Purple Roads. Remember to keep your eyes, ears, and heart open, and you'll find your purple road. We'll see you real soon.